ESPN just dropped his rookie forecast for the 2026-27 season, and Caleb Wilson was well represented in that. Not just for Rookie of the Year, not because of the Summer League. ESPN insiders are already putting Caleb Wilson in conversations about superstar upside, all NBA potential, long-term ceiling, and called him a draft steal at number 4. And we're talking a little bit about that because there's been a lot of hate coming from ESPN for the Chicago Bulls, but they did still manage to throw some shade at the Bulls, so we're talking a little bit about that. Plus, more rumors about Max Strus possibly coming to the Bulls, and Donovan Atwell goes back to college, so now the Donovan Atwell truthers can finally rest. We're going to talk about all this plus more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get to this content for today, y'all. So, ESPN is already basically saying, put your bets on Caleb Wilson. And, it says a lot, right? Because Caleb Wilson was one of those guys that, one of the best players in the draft, but people kind of looked at him as, the throw-in number 4. And, and even looked at his as a ceiling as a little bit lower. And it seems like that has changed a lot between the draft combine and what he did in Summer League. And so the ESPN rookie forecast repeatedly had Caleb Wilson some things. Now, there are also some things that weren't as glowing about it, but he showed up in conversations about superstar upside, all NBA potential, overall ceiling, draft steals, and championships, and we're going to break it all down here. And this is not common for every number 4 overall pick, and we're going to talk about it, right? So first, ESPN insiders rank Caleb Wilson 3rd in fastest path to becoming a superstar, which I think is the most important thing here. We'll talk about the other things, but like when you talk about a player becoming a star, and you guys know, like for those that don't look at the Full Court podcast, by the way, go check a Full Court podcast out. For those that don't watch that show, I think there are only like a handful of superstars in the NBA. I think that word gets thrown around a little bit too easily sometimes, and that really there are only a few superstars in the NBA, right? And so saying that he has that path to become a superstar, I think says a lot, right? Darren Peterson finished first, which I understand that, and this is why when a lot of the draft, kind of concerns people, like, we don't want Darren Peterson at number 4, you're crazy. AJ DeBonsa finished at number 2nd, and then Caleb Wilson finished at number 3rd with 3 votes. Cam Boozer only received 1 vote despite being drafted, of course, ahead of Caleb Wilson. And this just shows that people do think that Caleb Wilson's skills could translate to actual star upside. And I think a big part of that is that the two-way ability. We know that Caleb Wilson can be a damn good defender, right? We've seen that he could be a transformative defender. Caleb Wilson being your defensive anchor in a way, and I don't mean that by center, I just mean kind of being your centerpiece defensively. It gives you switchability, gives you somebody to get in the passing lanes, it gives you somebody that can block shots, somebody that can rebound. And I think when you look at talking about a star upside, you're looking at that because of the offense. And I think people are really starting to realize that maybe they underrated Caleb Wilson's offense a little bit. And it's not just because of the three-point shot. I want to be clear, not just because of the three-point shooting. That's going to help some as well with his ability to get a quick first step and those things. It's going to help him round out offensively, but I think it's the aggression. I think it's the no fear that he has offensively. Like his offensive game may, as a rookie, may look very similar to like near prime Jimmy Butler, right? And I don't mean like when he was dropping 30 and some points, but I just mean in the way that he gets his offense. If he becomes a more consistent three-point shooter that he flashed in Summer League, the upside is there, right? So, the question that they present is that, can he average 22 immediately? And, we'll see, right? We'll see if he can do that. I don't think that that's something you want to put on him and say, you have to go out there and average 22 your rookie year, but we'll see that, right? Caleb Wilson doesn't have to be a superstar as a rookie. And I think that's the important part to remember in this one. Even if those superstar traits come out over the first 3-4 years, whatever it is, that's fine as long as you're seeing that development. And with the way that Caleb Wilson puts in the work, I don't see how anybody can doubt if they're going to see that development from Caleb Wilson, right? Then there was the all-NBA upside argument as well, which I put right up there with the superstar upside conversation. Wilson received a vote, for the rookie that would make an All NBA team first, right? That doesn't mean that they're predicting it. That just means that they expect him to be in that conversation as a rookie to possibly be on one of the All NBA teams, right? That's different than just saying somebody's a good starter. It's different than saying somebody's good for a rookie. That says you're saying that somebody can come in there and be one of the best, what are there, 3 All NBA teams, one of the best 15 players in the league right away, at least for that season. Not overall, but for that season, right? And so this is somebody that, to me, you see that and you see that somebody finishing in that, you're saying that they could become one of the best forwards in the game of basketball if that ends up being the case, if he hits on that. If you're thinking he could do that as a rookie, and I want to be clear here, it's not an end-all, be-all, right? Because there are some players that don't make an All-NBA team that we know are damn good players, right? So I'm not going to say that that's going to be something that's there, but when you look at the player that's going to make an All-NBA team first, Cam Boozer came in at number 1, Darren Peterson came in at number 2, and AJ DeBonsa and Caleb Wilson were tied for number 3. I think that says a lot about how each one of those guys received 1 vote. Cam Boozer received 7 votes in that, and I think part of that, the reason why, is because he's going to have everything go through him right away in Memphis. Like, the offense is going to run through Cam Boozer year 1. They have nothing left other than that, right? So, they have Cedric Howard. They have other talent, but he's going to be the main offensive initiator. So it makes sense that he finished number 1 as well. But I look at that and I say, hey, all right, cool. Next up, ESPN's projection of high ceiling. Caleb Wilson voted 4th in the first All-Star voting for that. And I think that kind of makes some sense if you think about the way voters look at. AJ DeBonsa got 4 votes. Darren Peterson got 4. Cam Boozer got 3, and Caleb Wilson came in 4 with 2 votes, right? And I think that makes sense because people still look at Caleb Wilson like that raw offensive thing, right? And AJ DeBonsa is more well-rounded offensively, even though he needs to work on his shot too. Darren Peterson's well-rounded than Cam Boozer. So if we talk about selected to an All-Star team first, okay, cool. You want to vote on you want to put Caleb Wilson last there? We understand that. I think that just says a lot about. I think it's going to take some time, and I think also All-Stars take time because of the team. Now, I guess the point that fights about that is that Cam Boozer's on a team that's projected to be much worse than the Chicago Bulls and the Memphis Grizzlies. It is what it is. We'll see, right? He also did not receive a single vote for biggest immediate impact on winning, which I don't understand that personally. And the reason why I don't understand not receiving a vote on the most was because he does things that impact winning right away. He didn't receive a vote. So the question that was asked was, which lottery pick will have the biggest impact on winning this season? Cam Boozer came in at number 1 with 5 votes. Darren Peterson came in at number 2 with 4 votes. And then you had AJ DeBonsa, Morez Johnson Jr., and Yaxel Lindenberg all splitting 1 vote each. Now, Cam Boozer, again, I understand these type of votings because he's going to have everything go through him in Memphis. He deserves that. Darren Peterson, there's going to be there's a lot of players on that Utah Jazz team, especially in that wing and guard rotation, but it is there. But not receiving a single vote is weird to me, especially over like a Morez Johnson. No knock on Morez. I would have loved him on this Bulls team. But to me, being picked at number 9, being on a team that already has, Daniel Gafford, you got PJ Washington, you got Derek Lively, right? Like, there's going to be a lot of players ahead of him in that rotation. I know he has the same college coach there, so he's probably going to get him in the rotation. But to me, Caleb Wilson is going to start right away. He's going to impact the defensive side right away. He's on a team that's kind of set up to kind of mitigate his weaknesses right away. So I don't know. I don't get that one. Personally, I would have voted him higher on this one, and that's just not because he's a Chicago Bull. That's just looking at it. But I guess also Yaxel Lindenberg being on an old team like the Golden State Warriors is maybe why he received a vote, but it is what it is on that one. That just seems like, considering where we saw him voted somewhere else, it just seems weird. Like, yeah, Chicago has a new front office. We have a new coach, all those type of things. But I think that the way that we've set up development and the way that we've kind of set up a team to where Caleb Wilson can focus on what he does best and it being a two-way. He's one of the best two-way players in this draft. It just is a little confusing to me, the fact that he didn't get voted a little bit higher. But, hey, it is what it is there. Then ESPN voted on the best long-term ceilings, and Caleb Wilson came in at number 3 in that. And I like that pick for Caleb Wilson. I think that when you talk about the ceilings and those type of things, like Caleb, because of his defensive floor, right? And that is that if he hits offensively like many people think that he will, he's going to go off to the stratosphere. He came in at number 3 in the which top rookie has the highest long-term ceiling. AJ DeBonta came in at number 1 with 6 votes. Darren Peterson at number 2 with 3 votes. Caleb Wilson at number 3 with 2 votes, and then 1 vote for Mikael Brown Jr., meaning that no votes for Cam Boozer in that regard. Shout out to my boy Undisputed, who I know is going to be very triggered by that. But the long-term ceiling is really there. Like, we know the ceiling that Caleb Wilson has, right? The conversation about ceiling is something that gets a little people confused because they think it's just about athleticism. That's not really what it is either, right? This is a guy that I think when you look at Caleb Wilson is that if the offense is legit, he's going to be one of the most well-rounded players one of the best two-way players in the NBA. Now, keep in mind, saying that somebody's going to be one of the best two-way players doesn't mean that they're going to be one of the best players in the NBA, because that's just not how it works, unfortunately. Every player gives that two-way effort, but I think that is this, right? The rebuild for the Chicago Bulls isn't about who's going to be best when the season starts. It's not even going to be who's the best when the season necessarily ends. It's about who's the best long-term, and I think that this puts that in perspective for Caleb Wilson. Even if he doesn't have the best rookie year out of this group, let's just say he doesn't. I know he wants to win Rookie of the Year. Hopefully, a lot of Bulls fans want to see him win Rookie of the Year, right? But if Caleb Wilson has the third highest ceiling in this class, which how deep this class is, that means that he has the potential to be a future face of the franchise. That's it. Not just the athletic finisher that people have kind of pigeonholed him into, a very well-rounded player. And watching how the Bulls develop him, between Tiago Splitter and Jordan Brink and all those guys, how they develop him. What skills do we look at Caleb Wilson not having right now that he may have by the end of year 4? That's a part that's very exciting. I think overall it adds to that conversation of do not box Caleb Wilson in. Do not box him, right? When you look at it, don't turn him into just a cutter and a lob threat. Let him handle the ball some. Let him shoot some. Eventually, let him create a little bit, especially when you have him in there with bench players. I don't know if we have the necessary shooters that he's going to need around him to be able to let him create as much this season. But eventually, I do want to see what Caleb Wilson looks like when given an opportunity to create for himself and for others, right? He's going to be able to defend multiple positions. He may be able to defend 4 positions right away in the NBA, right? And also, I think the important part of this, and this is the part where Billy Donovan kind of failed at in the development of Modest and some other players, let them make mistakes. Let Caleb Wilson make mistakes early on. Because I think for the mindset that Caleb Wilson has, if he makes a mistake, if he gets cooked on a defensive assignment, he's going to work to make sure that does not happen again, right? And so while like Norman Powell may be a better scorer today, hell, Modest Buzelis may be a better scorer today than Caleb Wilson. Caleb Wilson's ceiling still has to be one of the priorities on this team. Not the overall, not just about one person, but it does have to be one of the priorities on this team. You don't develop Caleb Wilson to just become a starter. You develop him to find out if he can truly become the face of your franchise. And then the part where ESPN, kind of threw a little shade at the Chicago Bulls, because it's clear ESPN likes Caleb Wilson. They don't necessarily like the Chicago Bulls, right? Caleb Wilson, in the talking point of this, they did not rank Chicago as one of the best rookie situations. Now, me personally, when you look at this team, I do think that Caleb Wilson is in a really good situation for him, especially in that starting lineup. I think that we have a rotation in a lineup that's really set to maximize the skills and not put him in a position where his kind of negatives are going to be exploited, right? But at the same time, I do think that this isn't just about on the basketball court. I think that ESPN put this ranking for the Chicago Bulls as far as not one of the best situations, mainly due to how much up and downness we've had in the front office. Bryson Graham is going to have to show that we have stability in the front office, right? We're going to have to show that the ownership is not going to get in the way, right? And that's something that, even being a Bulls fan, I got to say is fair. When you look at the number of bad decisions that's come out of Chicago over the last handful of years, it'd be difficult, even with a change of front office and a head coach, to say that he's in one of the best situations, because you're looking at everything in a franchise. I do think the team has done some work this offseason to change that, and we'll see, right? But I think when you look at this, the Bulls have to create the right environment for Caleb Wilson to develop in. And I think that they've done that to a degree. You got Modest, who's going to develop alongside with him, right? You brought in Norman Powell to alleviate the scoring. You brought in Nick Claxton to help be that weak side and anchor defender, right? To be along with him in that front court. You got Josh Giddey and his passing and how that's going to matter for Caleb Wilson as he learns to develop and create his own shot. All those type of things. Shooting around Caleb Wilson matters as well. So the Bulls do have talent. The talent is there, but now they have to show that they can develop an elite talent and become and grow with that player as he grows as well. And we'll see, right? And so ESPN called this around this. They framed it as Chicago as launching a rebuild around Caleb Wilson. And that's really what they have to do. It means that he has to be viewed as one of the most important pieces. It doesn't mean he has to be Michael Jordan. There's only one of those, right? But it does mean that if the Bulls want to raise their ceiling as a franchise and how they're viewed as a franchise, that's directly tied to how we handle Caleb Wilson. I think that's a big thing. Drafting Caleb Wilson is only step one. Developing him is step two. Developing Modest alongside him is step three. Finding the young players that can also grow with them is step four. Finding another star eventually, if you don't grow one on your roster, is step five. Then ownership, spending to finish the job and build a championship team is the next step. And we'll see what's going to happen in regards to this. ESPN also threw out something that you got to look at. There have only been a few players in the last decade that have been drafted top four that have won a championship with the team that drafted them. That's Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Chet Holmgren. That's it. They're the only top four picks to win a championship with the team that drafted them. Can the Chicago Bulls and Caleb Wilson be one of the next ones to do that? We'll see. The hope is there for sure. Let's see if the Bulls can get it done. But moving on from that, right? It's a lot of talk about Caleb Wilson there. I love it. Max Strus. There was an article written, especially with the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're reportedly looking to someone to take on Max Strus' salary, mainly because they, even after the trade of Dennis Schroeder, they're still looking to create a little bit more space to either get Peyton Watson or Jonathan Kuminga in there. Now, Jonathan Kuminga is the cleaner bet for them because they don't have to clear as much space, right? So the question is do the Chicago Bulls want to act as a salary dumping team for Max Strus? Max Strus is an expiring contract, so it's not a long-term commitment. That means it fits in with what Bryson Graham has tried to do this offseason with not tying yourself to long-term money to veterans. It is a $16.5 million contract, though. So meaning that it's not as simple as the Chicago Bulls can just take on the salary. All we have is our 9-point-something million room exception. So we don't have the cap space to just absorb them outright, which means we will have to send some money back to get that deal done. And that's the case that you're looking at here. Now, if the Bulls do that, we'll see. Max Strus, of course, would add another shooter to this team, which the Bulls do lack. And right now, when you look at their bench depth, we just don't have that shooter coming off the bench. We don't really have a true scorer coming off the bench. We have some scoring that you can do between, Leonard Miller and Jalen Smith and Trey Jones, and those guys can maybe score enough to get in there. But Max Strus, would he be willing to come to the Chicago Bulls? Last season, Max Strus averaged 11 points, 5.4 rebounds, 2 assists. He did that on 43% shooting from the field as well. And, by the way, 40% shooting from the field. Now, he did only play 12 games for the Cleveland Cavaliers last year, and has been a decline. He played 80 games his last year in Miami in 2022-23. That went down to 70 his first year in Cleveland, then 50, and then 12. So there's definitely that concern when it comes to Max Strus, but he's 30 years old and a player that can absolutely stretch the floor, and he'd be willing to accept a bench role when it comes down to it. So, there's going to be that speculation as long as the Bulls have an open roster spot and there's shooters available when a team needs it. So could the Bulls provide that? Yeah, and I think that it's more than just a salary dump. Max Strus actually helps. He's a 37% high-volume three-point shooter for his career. That helps the Bulls. The Bulls need spacing. This is a guy that can play with Giddey, Caleb, Modest, all this type of stuff. He can benefit from those. He can benefit playing with the starter some, staggering some with the bench unit, all those type of things. This is a useful veteran that doesn't really change the long-term trajectory or the direction for the team, and the expiring salary is a really good selling point for that as well. So I wouldn't mind. Like, Max Strus can definitely be useful, right? The question becomes about what would Cleveland Cavaliers attach to that if we're taking on a salary and dumping off most of that. They don't have a lot of second-round picks, and a projected first may end the conversation completely, but that may be what they have to do because they don't have the second-round picks. We'll see, right? Again, this is why a deal may never happen. It comes down to the assets that the Cleveland Cavaliers have to be able to offer in a deal like this, and we'll see, right? Now, if they do get desperate, Chicago is in a position. Chicago looks at it and says, we can absorb another salary. It's short term. I know Bulls fans are going to ride if we absorb another veteran salary and don't get, well, I mean, I say Bulls fans. There's a segment of Bulls content creators that are going to ride if we don't get another pick to just say we stacked another pick. But, we'll see, right? But this is why you keep an open roster spot, for the flexibility to do things like this. Graham's patience, though, seems like it's going to be in finding the right deal, not just finding a deal. And so because of that, this may be something that the Bulls pass up on and that they don't, go after but there's a possibility for it there as well, and that's why I wanted to talk about it. So seems like the Cleveland Cavaliers are back shopping around Max Strus, and the Bulls have been mentioned as a team that could take on the Max Strus contract. Does it end up happening? We'll see. Right? I have my doubts, but we'll see. If it was more like an $8-9 million deal, I would probably see that happening more likely. But because it is a $16.5 million deal, I just don't know if I see it. And when you look at it, like, yeah, we don't have to send back the exact matching salary. It's kind of what they're looking for, is a lopsided trade in that regard. I just don't know. I don't know what the Bulls are going to do in it. I don't know if they see themselves, or even what level where the Cleveland Cavaliers are willing to take back a longer term deal to get that done, maybe a 2-year deal, because would they take back the contract of like a Rob Dillingham to get that done, right? Which would then save them $8 million. Would they take back a Zach Collins, who's immediately eligible to be traded, right? I don't want to give up Jalen Smith just to get Max Strus back. I feel like you're taking away another 3-point shooter to get another one that's not at a position like that you need him at. So, we'll see, right? And maybe this happens in the middle of the season instead. Maybe Leonard Miller does make Jalen Smith expendable, and then the Bulls make that move then. It doesn't help them get Peyton Watson or Jonathan Kuminga now, but it is something they can eventually revisit, and we'll see what happens there. The last topic of the day that I want to talk about, Donovan Atwell is going back to college. He's taking advantage of the ruling, and he's going back to college now. He's going back to Texas Tech, and that's just the reality of it. This is a player that came in. He was granted another year of NCAA eligibility, and so he's going to return to Texas Tech. He's a 45.8% career three-point shooter from college. He shot 48% from three in summer league, and he did look like a player that was eligible for a two-way contract. There were some Bulls fans that gassed it and talked about him potentially getting the 15th roster spot. That was never going to happen. But, maybe the Bulls revisit this later. He could be a target down the road for the Chicago Bulls, because returning to that, I don't know if that makes him eligible to go back into the draft or not. I don't know what happens there. The NIL money is going to offer more than a G League contract could, but now he's on more NBA radars because of his performance in summer league, and we'll see now, right? But now that does go back to Jalen Sellers, Dalen Swain as young guys that could potentially fill that scoring role off the bench for the Chicago Bulls, and we'll see. Donovan Atwell, again, somebody asked on Twitter, like, oh, why is nobody breaking this news? It's not a big deal. Like, really, it's just not a big deal. But, we'll see what the future does hold for Donovan Atwell, and he gets to go back to college and hopefully have himself a good season and help his future NBA career. But that's going to do it for today's episode, y'all. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or a live stream. You can follow us at Bull Central Pod on every social media platform. You send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. But that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.